All right. Hey, everybody. This is George Affleck along with Mike Wilson, and we are here today doing some training. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done any training, but today we're going to be focusing on primaries. We're going to talk about America and really focus on one area for today. But I think a lot of the stuff we'll be talking about in a general way is relevant to whether you're running for state senate, whether you're running for MLA in Canada or a municipal government or school board. The same tactics work. So why don't you tell us a bit about what the basic topic today, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, that's right, George. It's the primary season. Often this is where the elections are really won or lost, and people don't realize that, if a party is very popular in a certain area, it's the nominations where the battle is fought. So often a few dozen people, a few hundred people are choosing your school board member or your municipal council. We've had some questions about does this work for small races and big races? Obviously, we've worked as high as the federal level and as low as, Supreme Court justice. So it moves back and forth. So we can definitely use these principles in all the races. I would say if you're in a small race like school board or municipal council in a smaller city, this is actually even more valuable training because this is where the politics really kick in. So
Yeah.
excited to dive into it with you all. All right. So we have always been looking in our trainings at a certain Nevada State Senate district. Our favorite district, redistricting, is fully in place there now. It's Nevada's 6th district. So just to recap for those of you who haven't followed some of the training as we followed, there's a Democrat that won by a slight margin in the last election. And this cycle that we're in right now, the Senate seat, the state Senate seat is up for grabs, and it's a very much a swing district. So in our district, on the Republican side, actually, we're filming this on May 17th, and the primary is held on June 11th. So just a few weeks away for these candidates.
Mhm.
Here are the two, Joshua Stacy and Jill Douglas. They One thing I noticed, George, is very simple websites, very simple issues. One of the things we just want to touch on is usually the issues are not going to be the most dominant wedge in a nomination campaign. You're assuming you're running for the same party, you're agreeing on probably 90% of the issues most of the time. Unless there's like a bigger, a federal level where there's different factions within a party, but usually on a small regional level, all the candidates are going to be agreeing on the policy. So personality, how hard you work, how much money you raise, how personal you are, how well you did at the retail politics has a huge factor in if you win or lose or not.
Yeah, and it's such keeping it simple and just building your followers is the key to success.
Yeah, so let's get started in our steps that you need to take. So the first thing is to know the numbers. You'd be amazed, even though the numbers are so small. Like we've been talking to some people in ridings in Canada or in municipal or in school board elections in the States where the primary had like 800 or 300 voters. Someone got 150, the other person got 140. And you can imagine if you just got 10 more people to vote, you could start your career as a politician. So it's hugely important to know the numbers.
We just saw that happen with a campaign where a primary was happening, and the party really thought what was going to be the candidate, and they assumed that she would be. She had a competitor come along and snatched it away from her. She figured out the math and she did it, and it was a shocker.
Total shocker. And often going against the party apparatus who wants their appointed candidates. This is a great way to get into the game. In the Nevada State Senate District 6 primary, the last one held, there was none before. It was 2016, I believe. And there was 6,200 total votes. Victoria Seaman won with 3,800 votes to 2,300. So you can see this is not a lot of voters. It's a very small primary. As we go into this race, both Jill and Josh will know exactly of these roughly 6,000 members that are still in the party. It could be a bit more now. How many are voting for them and how many are not? So the main thing you have to do is with the current members, you need to look at all your opponents, and you preferably have called through the list and door knocked the list of all the members or as many as you can, and you're getting a really good sense of the current members of the current 6,000. 60% are voting for me and 40% are voting for my opponent. And if there's 5 or 6 people in the race, which there often is, the math can become really complicated. You know, I have 20%, the next person has 15, the next person has 10, the next person has 8, the next person had 5. But you need to know in the current membership, how are you doing versus your opponents? And the only way to do that is door knocking and phone calling. You have to do, because you can't do wide level polling like you would in your state level race or your federal level race or your municipal race. Because it's just a primary, you have to make the phone calls yourself or with your own callers to figure out where you are.
Yeah. And when you're talking about multiple candidates and the difference between winning and losing could be 10 votes, also ask your friends. Please beg your friends, even if they don't support the party you're in, just say, you don't have to vote for the party. Can you just help me out here? Because, man, oh man, I've seen so many times where a person's personal network has taken them over the top by 10 or 15 votes because they had a person join the party and vote for them and show up. And it's such a key part of it. It's just crazy, the primary in that process, because it really is when you have like 6 people or something you're running that win ratio is can be so tight.
Yeah. And often it's in a school gym and people are going to the back to count, you know, it's a hot night, you know. So that's the second part of the numbers, though, is in addition to knowing where you stand with the current membership, you may be the insider candidate and you have 80% of the membership and you're the outsider and you have 20, but maybe as the outsider, you are the one that's bringing all these new constituencies into the party and you're signing up new members and more importantly, getting turnout, getting those voters to come out. So maybe, you know, let's say there's 1,000 members in the race and your opponent has 800 and you only have 20. Well, if you signing up 2,000 new members to come and vote and making sure they come out, then that math works for you. You get your 2,000 plus 200 and they get their 800. So you need to have 2 numbers in your calculus. How much of the current membership do I have? And then how many people am I bringing in to vote for me and turning out to vote? And you have to try and guess how many of your opponents will also get in new members sign up. So the new members sign up is quite a game, George, as you and I both know. A lot of people pretend they're signing up this many and they release these numbers that aren't really true. But the reality is you just got to do the work. You got to get out there, you got to sign people up, and you got to get them in to vote.
Do not pay attention to what your opposition is doing because they are full of it. Because what they're trying to do when you say that, Mike, as far as exaggerating their numbers, they're trying to paralyze you. Say, oh, what's the point? Why bother? I can't even get close to what they've got. And when you're talking where there's only 1,000 votes max potentially, or even 3,000, it's not impossible for you to surpass that person. And don't believe their numbers. Do as Mike said there for sure. Get it, find out who in the membership is your vote, and then just get those new members. And don't believe any of the numbers your competition's saying. It's brutal, and it's also a weird process. It's such a weird. It almost feels undemocratic because it can be gained because you just really got to sign up people as fast as possible.
And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit in our next 2 sections, which is issues and demographics. So most of the candidates are probably going to agree on the issues that matter in an election and the demographics that they're going for. But where you want to know the issues and demographics, we'll start with the issues, is in signing up members. So right now in Nevada, there's some serious problems with the education system. There's been some crazy controversies with some teachers doing some very strange things, and the economy is in really rough shape and on dangerous ground. So there's groups of people, parents that care about education and what's going on, and there's groups of people that have lost their jobs or are in troubled economic grounds. You can use these issues, not so much to say how great a candidate you are on those issues, but if you can win the support of the people that care about those issues, you get them into the party and get them into voting in the primary. So that's how you're leveraging issues in a primary setting. You're becoming the expert, not so you're going to go and solve the problem, but so those people join the party and vote for you as the person that will solve that problem.
Yeah. And it's so much more specific when you're running in this primary situation because you can actually leverage that one issue and that's all you talk about. And we've in previous lives and in our training, we talk about third party kind of platforms that you can use or that you can harness or you can be a part of that are focused on those issues that then throw their support behind you. That's a huge deal on a primary because again, you don't need everybody in your entire area to vote for you. You just need the people that are members of the party you're with.
Yeah, exactly. And so the next level of analysis you got to do once you get people coming in on issues is getting people coming in on demographics. Now, this is huge. You guys probably know this if you've done any elections in your past, but there's small groups of people, different ethnic communities, different business communities, different parent communities, different community issues, and different income levels. There's a million small groups in your riding that are going to be super passionate about one issue or two issues. And if you can galvanize them, become the expert on that, and get them out to vote in your primary, it's hugely important. And often primaries are fought as battles versus who's going to get this minority or this demographic group to come out and vote for them, because that makes all the difference in a small number race.
Yeah. Facebook's great for that, for finding those audiences and starting to have conversations with them. Invite yourself, say, hey, I'd like to do come and have a live conversation with your group, or either online or sometimes in real life. It can be really effective to find those groups. You just search on Facebook and you can find so many very, very niche groups. Because man, even if they have 200 people in their group, but they're talking about one specific issue only, if you can get those 200 people behind you, that's huge.
Huge. It makes all the difference. And then once you have this all added up, how many numbers you need to win, you just have to take that goal that you have in mind and be relentlessly driving towards that goal. This is the one thing, if we can just emphasize anything in this training, is you need to be relentlessly taking action. I've seen, George, so many people not work their plan. They have a race and it might be only 1,000 people and they think they're the most popular. They have the biggest public profile, but they don't make the phone calls. They don't go to the door. They don't sign up new members. They think that, by winning the air war and being the one the party likes, that they're going to win. And then someone comes in and works harder and signs up members, and boom, they take out the front runner. It happens all the time.
And one of the challenges quite often in this kind of situation, prior to you being the selected person, is you don't have an infrastructure because you're not provided with one. Once you become the candidate, you get all this stuff. What we do a lot of with candidates who are in this situation, who are just not quite, they're not there yet. We have a whole process and a whole CRM that we set up for them. It's pretty cheap, $500, that you can have everything built for you, your landing page, your CRM, how to text, email everybody. And if, because that is such an important part of it. If you don't keeping track of, like, a spreadsheet is really hard to keep track of. If you have an automation system where you can email and text people, especially getting that vote out, showing up at that community center or that school gym on the day of, if that's how it's working where you are, it's such a huge issue, a huge process, part of the process. And if you're not doing it, again, it's you can't rely on anybody doing this for you. You really are quite often on your own to figure all this out.
Yeah. If there's one thing I would say on the issues, you want to make sure that some group is not forcing you into a position on an issue. Oftentimes what we'll get is a small group that's really passionate about one issue. They kind of join the primary just to almost force you to come alongside with their position so you get their vote. So you want to make sure you're not compromising yourself personally or your values or your integrity. It's a lot of, issue groups come in and try and manipulate these races, and it's something to be very wary of and to hold your ground. So stick your message, hold your ground, and get the people that are with your issues to come in.
And do your research on the groups that do invite you to these church basements and community areas. They find out, what if they have a hidden agenda. So often you see politicians, they might benefit from this group, but then they get elected and there's photos of them at this group, and they find out this group is actually representing something completely different, and it really hurts them once they get elected, and the party doesn't photos or recordings of you at something where you're kind of agreeing with something that you don't quite know what's happening, or it's out of context or whatever it might be. So be very careful about some of those groups as well. They may be very enticing, but do your research on those as well to make sure you're not caught out, not only in the moment but in the future, because of social media and all the other platforms that stuff can be used for. Door knocking, by the way, Mike, we met with a candidate last night, and we're talking with a few candidates, and there's a campaign happening where we are, multiple campaigns right now, federal, provincial, everything. And the door knocking became a big conversation for us last night about how important this was for the candidates. And one of the candidates we were speaking to had already won the nomination, and he absolutely said the door knocking is what took him over the top by a lot. Like, he won by he was a second ballot, and he only lost by like 10 or so in the first ballot. It was a bit frustrating because your ego kind of wants you to win on that first round. So he won the second ballot, but he said the door knocking is what killed it for him, for sure. Like,
He really focused on that current membership. He really made that his goal. So, you come to your math and you do your work. The other thing is you got to meet people in primaries. You can't expect to be talking at a podium and not listening to people. These party elections are where people want to feel heard. They want to feel like they know you and they are able to get in touch with you if they need to. You have to do that retail politics. You don't want to fly in as the highfalutin candidate. It works against you in primaries.
Totally. Totally. You want to be grassroots for sure. And I think, again, stick to your issues. Don't overcomplicate it. Know the one or two things that you're truly passionate about that you can talk about in every kind of situation, any room you're in. And we talk about this a lot. You'll be at some thing where the topic might be something else completely that you're not an expert at, but you should be able to always bring it back home to two things that you're an expert at. It's the best way to stay on focus and stay on message and not get caught out. So stay on the messages that you truly understand wherever you are. That will resonate with people. They'll remember you're the person that really is great at this. And obviously Mike showed you some of the data that you should collect and see what are the hot issues and how does your story fit into the top issue in that moment in time, because things change during campaigns. But how do you make yourself relevant to the hottest issue in your community at that moment?
That's huge. And one other little strategy tip, if you're in a large race, like we see in the presidential races where there's 5 or 6 or 7 candidates, if you can somehow position yourself as I'm the one that does this and all the others does that. For instance, we're working a race right now where there's going to be one that's an outsider and the rest are insiders, but you could be the one that was successful in business and the rest weren't, or the one that understands politics and the rest don't. But if you can get yourself in a multiple candidate race to be the one versus the rest, then the math just works really well for you, because anyone who wants that thing is going to vote for you, but all the other votes are divided up amongst those other 5 candidates. So being able to position yourself in a not a 2-way race that we looked at today, but if you're in a 5-way race or a 7-way race, being able to be different than all the rest and be able to repeat that over and over again can be hugely advantageous.
All right, Mike, that should wrap it up. Just a reminder that we have the membership to the Campaign University. It's $8 a month if you want to access all of our training, about 60 hours of training, as well as get a one-to-one with Mike and I on your campaign. We also do consulting for campaigns, especially in the primaries at this point, where we set you up for success, get you focused on the messages, as well as providing you with a CRM that can really work well for you. If you don't have a CRM and marketing automation set up, DM us and we can send you some links to ours, and you can see how it works. It's really affordable. It's way better than Nation Builder and all these other ones. Those are so expensive. We've really democratized the CRM side of it, because we know, certainly from our point of view, when we work with candidates without a proper CRM, this is your customer relationship management, how you manage the lists that you have and how you contact people. It becomes almost impossible to do an effective campaign.
Yeah. So we look forward to, we'll drop a link below for the $8 training and you can reach out to us on the CRM. But yeah, work the primary, do the phones, meet people, and that's where you're going to find your success.
Good luck, everybody. Thanks.